Hi there, my name is Kay Moon and I am a twin flame channel and Western astrologer. And this is a video about the February 9th full moon in Leo happening at 2:33 a.m. Depending upon where you are in the world, definitely check a time zone converter for your local time zone. 2:33 a.m. is the local time on the eastern seaboard of the United States. This particular full moon, actually, before I get into this, I should actually give you a couple of quick announcements. A lot of people have emailed asking about readings for February. February is sold out at this point. The reading calendar for March will open up mid-month. So you're welcome to get on my private list to be the first to know. That private list link is in the description box below this video, so you can just click it and it'll ask for your name and email, and then I'll email the list first when I open up the March reading calendar. But between now and then, I know a lot of you have questions about the Divine Feminine's retrograde, about the Mercury retrograde, about some of the stuff going on in Capricorn. So I've set up a couple of different days to do live mini readings. The first day will be Friday, February 7th. So the right before this full moon at 3 p.m. Eastern time. You'll definitely, again, need to convert to your local time zone. And then the second one will be Wednesday, February 12th at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. So mark your calendar so that you can jump in early. The list can get lengthy. I tend to read anywhere from about 2 to 4 hours, depending upon my energy. It's one question per person, and I'd be honored to read for you. You do need to sign up, however, for the live mini reading channel. Which is where I conduct the mini reads. You will not find mini reads any longer on the channel where you found this video. And you'll see the mini reading channel on your screen here. It's just K Moon Live. And this is where I'll be meeting with folks to do the mini readings. Definitely be sure to hit that notification bell, because the notification bell will let you know as soon as I go live. Then you can make your payment. And once you've made your payment, then I'll add you to the list. Unfortunately, I don't do mini readings by email, and I do not do payments in advance. So you actually have to be there live to get your mini reading. And that's the way we can stay connected, and I can offer you support in between now and when the March calendar opens. So thank you for bearing with me with those brief announcements. Let's get into this Leo full moon. This Leo full moon is taking place at the 20th degree of Leo out here. You can see the sun opposite here in Aquarius. And this full moon is completing the Lion's Gate cycle of 2019, that 6-month window of time where we walked through a particular, what's that called? Manifestation portal. Many of the things that we were working toward manifesting, a few things can kind of happen here, in particular under the aspects that this full moon is making. The completion of this cycle is anchored in by the conversations that this particular full moon is having. We've got Juno here at the 21st degree of Libra. This is the partnership asteroid in the partnership sign. We've also, in the sign of balance, we've also got Pluto here doing its grandest work in the sign of physical manifestation, talking all about tearing down old structures that no longer serve. So, under the light of this particular full moon, what we're looking at is the completion of structures, physical structures that have been a compromise in partnerships to our personal sovereignty, and letting those go so that we can evolve the way Aquarius suns ask us to. The Aquarius sun in this particular configuration is about evolution, the quantum leap forward, the technological advance, the next step. the unseen coming to light. It's about the electric insight coming forward. And this particular full moon is saying anything that would have blocked us from being able to see that is now starting to crumble down, in particular in our one-to-one relationships and partnerships, as this new moon has this very strong configuration to Juno. Again, Juno being that partnership asteroid representing partnership, good, bad, and ugly. This full moon is having a sextiling conversation to Juno, and it's having a trining conversation to the sun. And with Pluto being the outermost planet in the mix, therefore it's almost like the context or the container in which this conversation is happening. It's all swirling around in a Plutonian container. Pluto is saying, it's time to let certain things go. Let them die. Let them end, so that the new thing can be born. The nice thing about Pluto in this conversation, because Pluto being Lord of the Underworld, representing deaths and endings, a lot of people think of death, as a finality or something being over. But the reality of, Pluto and the sign that it represents, which is Scorpio, the sign that rules, and the eighth house of the zodiac, which is, all three of those are kind of linked. The reality of those is that the eighth house isn't the final house. The eighth house is not the final ending. Pluto, Scorpio, and the eighth house, they all represent transformation and alchemy. They're that point which, the butterfly, it's the chrysalis where the caterpillar turns into the butterfly. It's, the alchemical room and process and equipment that allows lead to turn into gold. It's that place where it's not life in a physical body and it's not afterlife without the physical body. It's that place in between. And so, if you really kind of understand that Pluto represents and marks that in between moment, and we've got, Juno here in the sign of balance at that seventh sign of the zodiac, that in between place, taking her first retrograde step, then you can really start to understand that whatever is ending now is not exactly over. Whatever is coming to completion now, it's so that, it's what's being torn down now and what's going away now is going to reemerge as that gold, reemerge as that butterfly, reemerge in that afterlife, without all of the physical Capricorn structural constrictions that have meant that it couldn't live to its fullest, that it couldn't be at its brightest, that it couldn't be fully expressed in the 3D world at its highest vibration and manifestation. And so this is really important to understand, because the endings with a Pluto and Capricorn are quite severe. They're really significant. Politically, we're seeing a lot of endings. In the business world, we're seeing a lot of endings. And even, geopolitically across the globe, we're watching the crumbling of certain structures right before our very eyes. And it would be very easy, especially with the partnership asteroid moving into retrograde motion right as this full moon takes place. It would be very easy to give up, to move into hopelessness. It would be very easy to find ourselves in a place of despair at this moment. It's over, but we are not. Again, there are houses after the eighth house, 9, 10, 11, and 12. There is life after the balance point, the halfway point, after Libra. There's Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. Whatever is ending now is so that a rebirth can happen and the fullest expression and manifestation of, who we really are, what we're really meant to be in partnerships with other people can come to light. And that's the gift of this full moon that's completing that Lion's Gate cycle. It's the first stage of the things that we wanted to call forward in manifestation at the Lion's Gate. It's the first step of that being made way for. Because what had to happen is what was previously in existence, that had to die in order that what we want to have come forward can live. All right? And so everything that's, kind of has come crumbling down, it was meant to. It was time. It had to. The wings of a butterfly don't carry the weight of a caterpillar. It doesn't work like that. So, a couple of other significant things going on under the light of this full moon that really anchor in that energy of this, completion of compromise cycle. Because that's really what's going on here is we're completing a cycle of things like structures in our relationships that have compromised us. Let me write that down. That's now the title of this video. Fantastic. All right. So there's a lot of different aspects going on here, but there's only a few that are really significantly worth sharing. Okay. So yeah. All right. So you may be noticing within yourself or within, the structures in your life, because this completion of this cycle could be happening at work at this time. It could be happening, on the home front at this time. It could potentially be happening in a relationship with your children, given that this is a Leo full moon, where, maybe a divorce happened and you don't get custody, or maybe the divorce happened and you do. Or it could potentially be happening, in the realm of relationships, particularly given the heavy Juno influence here, the Juno square Pluto influence. It's most likely happening in the realm of one-to-one relationships. There is a little energy of resistance. There's a little energy here of not going to go quietly and refusing to face the fact that this is done. This is over. What was can no longer be. And that resistance is kind of represented by, here's this Uranus here at the 3rd degree of Taurus, trining our friend here, Pholus, at the 3rd degree of Capricorn. And it's not just those two. It is also a little bit of, here's this Pluto having a hard square down here to an Aries Eris. Okay, so for those of you who are traditional astrologers, Eris here and Aries and Pholus may not be a part of your astrological conversation. And that's okay. You don't really have to, they don't need it to be, but they are a part of the way that I read. Eris, when you look at the mythology around her, she's known as spite and discord. But she really only brought out that side of herself when she felt disenfranchised, when she wasn't given voice or a seat at the table, when she was shut down and and her expression of her power was fully thwarted. That's when you saw Eris just, throw bombs and walk away, and create just utter chaos. When, she, felt like, she wasn't being heard. When you have a squaring conversation in a chart, you actually get, the shadow sides of some of those energies coming forward. And so with Pluto here in Capricorn in the sign of physical world manifestation, and Eris here in Aries, the sign of the self, our leadership and our power and our ambition, what we've got here is a bit of a thwarting of some of our ambition. It's a reckoning with the dreams that did not manifest, and an internal kind of self destruction and self implosion, almost a berating and a punishment of self as a result of what we couldn't call forward. It's a bit of a, the kid who gets one wrong answer on the homework and then you point it out, and instead of just erasing it and then writing in what they now know is the correct answer, it's crumbling up the piece of paper, throwing it on the floor, stomping off to a corner and crying uncontrollably, because it's almost like this energy of like the last straw. Like, I just can't take any more compromise. I can't take any more like berating and belittling and abashment to my sense of self. Like, I actually need my sense of self to be intact to make sure that I get up in the morning and eat and put a roof over my head and put clothes on my back. Right? And so when a child kind of has that behavior, what's wrong isn't that what you told them. What's wrong is a whole set of things that happened before that moment, where now we're getting the proverbial straw that broke the camel's back. And so, that strong reaction internally where, we want to self-flagellate can come forward under the light of this full moon as a result of, the ways in which we have been so compromised in relationships. And particularly because, what's interesting about this is the placement of Mercury with Nessus here in Pisces. Pisces really represents the subconscious mind. And in conversation with the subconscious mind, Mercury being the mind itself, now we're taking a deep dive because Mercury is about to go retrograde, right? Now we're taking a very deep dive into everything we said and didn't say, thought and didn't think, all of the miniature compromises we personally made along the way that got us into the situation in the first place. It's very easy, especially with Nessus sitting there at the 9th degree, Mercury at the 8th degree, so essentially they're sitting in conjunction. It's very easy to fall down a rabbit hole of self-blame and obsessive thinking about all the ways it coulda, woulda, shoulda been, coulda, woulda, shoulda gone, things we coulda, woulda, shoulda said, all the ways that I was wrong, they were wrong, it'll never work out, throw the whole thing out. Crumble up the paper. The entire test is wrong. The entire homework. We failed. It's over. It would be very easy, especially with our partnership asteroid moving retrograde, to fall into that trap, to start believing that all hope is lost, that there's nothing that can come that is good from this moment. And that's just simply not true. That would be a lie. But with this Pluto Eris configuration, there is a part of us that is in that dark place. When you're in that dark place, that shadow place, the light of that, the way out of that, and what you're actually being asked to do is to stand in what I call, I don't call it this, Jocko Willink calls it this, extreme accountability. What we're being asked to do is take 100% accountability for what's so via recognizing, we were created in the direct image of the divine. The divine's a creator, therefore so are we. We are creators. And what we're being asked to do is to look at the ways in which we have participated in our compromise, and then to let that behavior that's manifesting in the physical 3D world, let it go, let it die. Let that decompose, man. That's done. Us participating in our own compromise, that's done. We're not doing that anymore. Okay? And so if you find yourself in that darker place, what there is to do is to not, fly off the handle into hopelessness, but it's instead to look at, oh, how did I get here? What was my participation in my own demise or in my own challenge in the 3D world? And where can I take accountability for that so that I'm really clear I'm not doing that again? And that's the gift of this Mercury here in with Nessus and Pisces, is because much of what it is, that the ways in which we've participated, we've lent our own handiwork to our own challenges that we're now having in the 3D world. Much of why we did that has been lying in the blind spot. It's been laying in the blind spot that Pisces is. Pisces is the subconscious mind. It's the place that we have 180-degree vision out of both eyes, but it's the place that's right at 181 degrees and beyond, right behind our head, that we can't see. So this Mercury and this Nessus are causing some of that obsessive thinking so that we can get to the bottom of how we got ourselves into this situation. Now, on the flip side, I will also say that not everybody is going to do this work, and you will find some people who are going to come into your space. And you may, after I say what I'm about to say, you may even see this in yourself. You may find that there are some people who come into your space and they're inverting. Now, let me use a more accurate word. They are projecting the accountability they need to take for themselves onto you. And instead of them being accountable for how they got themselves into their shit show, they're asking you to be accountable for how they got themselves into their shit show. So have a look, search your heart. That's what this Mercury retrograde time is for. Have a look at where you can take extreme accountability for your participation in your own compromise. And when other people are asking you to take accountability for their participation in their own compromise, draw a line. That's part of what this Pluto square Juno energy is about. It's about drawing a line and saying that behavior and that cycle of kind of codependency where, we're compromising our sovereignty, full moon in Leo, that's done. We're not doing that anymore. Yeah, I did some things because, you know what? I had my own issues. But what you did and what you chose to do, that's because you had your issues and you need to go work that out. That's not for me to deal with. What's for me to deal with is why I let that happen in my space. So this is a little bit of an energy of, the universe stepping in and going, it's like there's a little boxing match going on in some of our partnerships, the universe stepping in and going, time out, both back to your corners, regroup. And for some, it's not even a timeout. It's like there are just some relationships that are just done because you're done with the behavior of self-compromise. And there was no other way for that relationship to go. Part of its lesson was to show you that behavior in yourself. Okay. And so the other piece here, which I mentioned, is this fullness. It's this fullness here trying Neptune. So here's fullness and here's Neptune, both in physical signs, 3D world signs. One in Capricorn, that's fullness, Uranus and Taurus. The other energy here, kind of anchoring a bit of this conversation, that's having us have this deeper look and, causing this a little bit of internal combustion as we move through this. Part of what's going on here is, Uranus saying and fullness saying it's the grand aha. It's the grand light bulb moment, because Uranus really is that, Uranus, Aquarius, and the 11th house. There's that lightning strike of divinity. It's the light from the heavens coming down to the earth and bringing forward that quantum leap, that insight that allows us to take that quantum leap. And Pholus, you look at the mythology around Pholus, Pholus is really, self-sacrifice, self-compromise at the hands of other people's nonsense. You look at the story and the mythology around Pholus, there's mixed stories. The accounts aren't all the same. But what is the same is that because some other people had their own agenda, Pholus got caught up in the mix and then he died. That's the baseline story that's consistent among all the pieces of Pholus's mythology. People have asked me in the comments, oh, how can I read more about the mythology? Google. That's how you can read about the mythology. Go to the library, get on Google. That's how you can find out. But having a look here, at that storyline and that recognition of self-sacrifice, like getting compromised because of other people's stuff that they have going on, and that aha and that insight trine coming forward from Uranus, under the light of this particular full moon, we've got a real gift sitting in our hands if we're just willing to look at the truth of how we got ourselves into compromised situations in the first place. I don't know where you stand politically, but the example comes to mind. There's a real crisis on the American continent, and between both the Republican and the Democratic Party, the bi-party system, and we're watching a lot of the implosion of a two-party, two-partnership, that's this Juno thing, happening right before our very eyes. So if you've been following any of the kind of impeachment stuff, this is a great example, where the Democratic House of Representatives had a vote to impeach the president based on what they saw as conduct that was inappropriate and violated the constitutional terms of the rights of a president. And the Republican Party, which is the party the president belongs to, in the Senate, pretty much unilaterally on party lines voted that the president was not guilty of those crimes. And so what's happening here, except for one person from that party said, no, I agree, there's something wrong here. What we're seeing here is that compromise play out, right? That compromise where we've participated in our own demise. The Democratic Party now has to go and look and see What are some ways in which we haven't done what we've needed to do to have the votes we've needed to have and the places we've needed to have them to achieve the result we wanted to achieve here? Where have we participated in our own compromise? Republicans too. Republicans too. Because if it's happening over there, it's also happening over here. There are many Republicans who, take exception to some of, the American president's actions. There are many who don't, who find this a real victory. But for those who do, those who are looking at this moment and saying, wow, there's some things that are real amiss. And this goes for not just politics, but again, business, family, home, one-to-one relationships. Anytime there is a two-party partnership where you find compromise to yourself or to your investment in it, this full moon is asking you to take a look at why you are being, how you've participated in your own underminement. And so again, I'm backing out of politics. Where you stand is where you stand. It's your business. I claim no particular investment either way. I'm only saying that this is an example where if you feel like you have lost something, this full moon is saying, look at how you've participated in creating your own loss. And that is one example of how this is playing out on the world stage. Okay? Moving forward, like I said, this Pluto square Eris, there's a little bit of not going to go quietly, not even willing to have a look at. Instead, maybe just throwing bombs and then walking away, self-imploding or projecting that implosion on it as an explosion onto someone else. There's a lot of that in the air right now. In particular, too, because we've got this Eris here opposite Juno. And Juno going retrograde, there's a lot of internal implosion energy going on here. And under the Aquarius New Moon, I talked about this at that time and even posted about this in the community section of the channel. All of the old addictions can start coming up right now. All of the old coping mechanisms that we use to get through things we'd rather not see, things we'd rather not feel, things that feel unbearable to the heart. Addictions can really rear their ugly head at this time. And cause us to kind of, self-flagellate in the face of what we deem to be, something being taken away or a failure with this Pluto square a retrograding Juno, because there is an ending here. There is something that's over, and we can kind of beat ourselves up, unfortunately, in the process. So, there is one very loud, and this is probably going to be the last thing I'll say. I'll save the rest of it for the private list because there's a lot of stuff here, but I don't want this video to get too long. If you're not already on the private list, definitely in the description box below, you'll see a link to it. I share, astrological insights in between these videos with them, more so than I share on the YouTube channel. So definitely get on that list. You'll also be the first to know about calendar openings and private events and things like that. This Pluto situation here, there's a loose, what astrologers call a configuration called a yod. And I won't get into all of the, geometry of it, but it's loose, and I'm going to claim that it's loose. A lot of astrologers would not call this a yod, but I see it here, and it's helpful to look at it. Because when you have a yod in a chart, you have an aspect of a particular kind of tension that's pointing to a singular way that that tension can get worked out. Because there's so much tension in this chart, and so many of you who subscribe to this channel and, are in community with me. So many of you are light workers, and you understand that your job here on planet Earth is to channel more light and more love onto the planet as she ascends. Um, the way out of some of this darker energy is to have a look for your own sovereignty. This is part of what Gaia is doing at this time, is she's, you know, taking away some of the privileges we have all come to enjoy by, because we have not really taken care of her the way she has needed to be taken care of. We want to ignore that there's a climate crisis on our hands. Now that I will claim a very particular stand on. If you don't believe there's a climate crisis, you should probably unsubscribe from my channel. I'm just pretty clear on the black and whiteness of that science. But that being said, Gaia is stepping back into her own sovereignty, and she's like, yeah, I can't provide you with what it is you previously had until you get in right relationship with the truth of what's going on here. That's just the way this goes. And this full moon in Leo, Leo is all about self-sovereignty. It's the sign of the king. And so this loose yod here is asking us to step into our own sovereignty, to get back on our throne, don our crown, and end the things that have compromised that sovereignty. The first piece of this yod is Neptune in Pisces. That's about ending illusions. But it's the Pluto thing that anchors it in as an ending in the first place. That's about ending patterns and behaviors in the 3D world. That's about ending choices and deconstructing or destructing structures that have asked us to participate in our own compromise. That's a lot of what Gaia is doing. She's out here like, okay, I got you. Clearly, you're not getting the message. So I'm gonna make it snow in Texas, and I'm gonna make it hot in Canada, in the middle of northern hemisphere winter. These are unprecedented experiences on planet Earth, where Gaia is going, you don't get it, so I'm going to show you. It's a little bit of that Eris energy coming forward. Like, we're supposed to be in partnership, humans, but you're not getting it. So I'm just going to explode a little bit on you so that you can see there's something needs to shift here. So, take the example with a grain of salt. If you are one of the people who, doesn't believe that climate change is happening and the science is incorrect, find an example that works for you. That's the example that's readily at my fingertips to share with you. But, the writing in whatever area of life is decomposing for you, the writing is on the wall. And this yod is asking us to just get back on our throne, wear that crown, become the ruler of our inner and, immediately surrounding kingdom and say, or queendom, and say, okay, that's got to stop so that this can grow. Because if this keeps going, that can't grow, and we can't all die here. This is the full moon that's saying, if the choice is you or me, then it's me. So I wish I had more rainbows, butterflies, and unicorns for you guys. I really do. But those of us in the astrological community have known for a long time that this was going to be a difficult year, given this configuration here in Capricorn. This Pluto-Saturn conjunction was never going to be easy. Because with it, what we're getting are a lot of endings. Cycle completions, behavioral pattern completions, addiction completions, denial completions. Things we've been in denial about no longer being able to be in denial about anymore. A lot of completions this year. Because when Pluto and Saturn get together, that's their energy. You know, Saturn creates endings when things are out of integrity. Pluto creates endings, period. You bring them both together and you got this double ending energy that is the context for the entire year. So, you know, stay tuned, my friends. You know, like I said, you know, this is not the end, you know. Pluto rules Scorpio. Scorpio is not the last sign of the zodiac, you know. And this thing with, you know, in Libra that is really, you know, also anchoring this energy, this Juno situation. Juno's going retrograde. And, you know, this is definitely about an ending in a partnership. But even Libra is not the last sign of the zodiac. So we're definitely completing a cycle of compromise, though. A cycle that would have knocked us off our throne, knocked us off our A game, knocked us off our capacity to lead and conduct our lives in a way that allows us to flourish and be, you know, be the best that we can be. We're definitely done with that. That's over. All right. So take it all in with a take it in with a soft heart to the degree that you can. Because the insight, you know, this Mercury conjunct Nessus and, you know, this Uranus trine Pholus, and then the retrograde motion of Juno and Libra having the conversation with this full moon, the insight about how we got here is available to us so that we never have to repeat the kind of compromise that we've experienced up until this point. We never have to repeat that again. That's done. That chapter of your life, it's over. And for that, we can be grateful that you now see how you've participated in your own compromise. You can see it, you're clear about it. And once you can see the truth, you can never unknow it. You can deny it, but you can't unknow it. And especially things that where we have hurt ourselves, it's like, oh, that fire hurt when I put my hand on the stove. I'm going to stop putting my hand on the stove now. So, like I said, if you're curious about, you know, how this could be playing out in your life and the impact of this and the upcoming Mercury retrograde and, you know, where this cycle of compromise is coming to a close in your chart, join me over here at K Moon Live. I've got live readings coming up, live mini readings, one question mini readings coming up on Friday, February 7th at 3 o'clock Eastern, Wednesday, February 12th at 4 o'clock Eastern. All of this happening before the March calendar opens up. Once that March calendar opens up, then you can book full readings. But for right now, this is the only way to, you know, stay connected and get a reading. If you have questions about your chart, the chart of, you know, your children or your husband or wife or your twin or whomever, the live mini reading is the way to do that. Be sure to hit that notification bell here. This notification bell is how you'll find out when I actually am live. And you want to know that so that you can get on the list first and you don't have to wait very long to get your reading. And I think that's it in terms of announcements. So, love to know how all of this resonates for you. I will see you in the comments below. Thank you so much. Please like, subscribe, and share.